Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, it seems like these alternative healing practitioners are dropping like flies. Apparently last year, from September to the end of the year of 2024, several have died. We've talked about the orgone specialist, James DeMaio. And it's come to my attention that somebody left me a little comment that Tom Paladino died. And of course, on both of the, well, of course, we do know what James DeMaio died of. He died of cancer. And they, of course, were being honest that way. Died very quickly after finding the diagnosis. And this is very strange because I've covered that in other ones I don't want to get into. Let's talk about Tom here. Now, Tom, of course, I've been following him for many years, and I was actually going to test him and almost did it last year. I guess if I would have tried when I planned to in November, he would have been bye-bye. Now, I don't know if anybody's running his operation. His website still seems to be out there. But I've listened to him for many years, many interviews and with him. And of course, he's just a radionic practitioner that changed over to Scalar Light to clean up his illegal act, because you can't make medical claims of healing people with radionics, but you can't do it, period. And apparently, the actual government has been allowing all sorts of people out there to make medical healing claims. And this is just wrong, especially by the fact that if he can do it, everybody else should be able to do it. And of course, this selective enforcement is kind of baffling to me. Now, in the early 2000s and late 1990s, if you did any of this stuff, you would end up having federal cops at your door with machine guns. Many people were arrested, particularly for frequency-type instruments. Many people were hassled. And many people were arrested. They even arrested, I believe, in San Diego, if I'm correct, many years ago. But they arrested a Chinese herbist for giving herbals to a person that would help them with a particular disease. And I believe they got 5 years in prison for that. So this is quite strange how all this goes. It's very typical of who gets things enforced upon them, how they're harassed, etc. So, of course, as I've mentioned with James DeMaio, is that, the whole orgone stuff has always been very doubtful. It's another area of study, but basically James and his little group of researchers up in Oregon really never did anything. There's nothing that done. Their publications are very old, and there's really nothing to anything that happened with them. And we don't see any tests being done or anything else. Now, what they were doing behind the scenes, lying about or whatever, who knows? But, everything's a lot of gossip. If you're not going to do research and be public about it and say that you're working with the weather and everything else, well, then why bother to do it? So it's kind of amusing. Now, though he wrote the definitive book on that, which I've covered him already, but it's the same old story here. Now, Tom Paladino, of course, was a radionic practitioner. He was using a Hieronymus machine, which he shows online. He shows what he does online. And apparently it looks like he's using one of the worst Hieronymus machines ever made by... what's that guy? I've had contact with him. He's got a complete mental case, who makes these Hieronymus machines and occasionally throws them up on eBay. I wish I could remember his name now. One second. Oh, Jenkins. Bill Jenkins. Is it Bill or James? Jenkins. He, of course, has been making Hieronymus-type machines and working with demons and everything else for a long time. He's a complete and total psychotic case who, when I bought an instrument from him, made all sorts of excuses that he was kidnapped. This guy is a complete nut job. And, of course, he hits you with the usual con artist thing. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. Yeah, you're a big crook. And of course, that's with him. And his technology is complete and total garbage. It's very poorly made, and it's an insult to Hieronymus to do that. But Hieronymus machines are very simple. Just like roof drown machines. Roof drown machines had 9 dials. Hieronymus didn't want to mess with that, so he basically put in 2 dials with 1 to 100 on them, giving them a similar capacity. Sometimes there were 4 banks, so they call them banks. 2 banks is traditional. 4 banks would give you 4 dials from 0 to 100. And of course, there is something to that because it's easier to dial. If you have to dial 9 dials, it's a lot of work. And this is one of the problems with tuning dial radionics. And the bottom line is hardly anybody can do it right. So this is one of the bigger problems. You really have to be skilled. You really have to be into it. And tuning 9 dials is a lot of work to get it right and how the energy flows, etc. So Hieronymus decided to make it easier on himself and figured through it. And of course, he was an engineer and mathematician. Not a mathematician, but I think he was an engineer that worked for some of the top companies, whatever they may be. I'm not sure that that's a credit or a debit, so to speak, for Hieronymus. Hieronymus seemed to get it. I don't know if his machines are any better. People grabbed onto him because he was the last big guy doing things. He had certain credibility because he was working with traditional electronics, which really is bogus. But he understood the fact that this was not an electromagnetic energy. He called it alloptic energy, which means electric type psychic energy, and that's what he called it. And basically, it was just a psychic tuning machine. He did apparently amplify it and even have antennas at one time. I have one of his units made in the late 40s or 50s, which is tube-based, and it's a big, giant unit. Very, very rare, but I have the actual unit that he made. And, of course, there were other ones that were made by him, or companies down there. And, of course, we have the other people down there who have copied his, and they're very simple machines. There's nothing to a Hieronymus machine. The only thing that he does a little different, he doesn't use potentiometers. He uses open air capacitors. So, and some people say it makes a difference. I don't know. It's all the stuff that we really don't have any data. And how can we go on a manufacturer's word? Yeah, my stuff works by. Well, yeah, we know that, but where's your data? No data from anybody. And apparently he was hassled. He moved over into doing agricultural stuff and was hassled there as well. So the story goes. And we will be offering his autobiography that was offered by his company many, many years ago online soon, where you can download it and read his information, which is interesting and silly at the same time. He puts his certificate from the Boy Scouts in there. I think it was the first or second page. It's hard to take somebody serious that he thinks that being a Boy Scout, I don't know if it's an Eagle Scout, is a great achievement. Yeah, if you live in the forest. So the whole idea is just a little bit ridiculous in this day and age. The Boy Scouts is an idiot institution made for stooges based in 1918 kind of realities. Of course, started by a stooge. So the whole idea is we all get into these things that people need a little more than lighting fires and tying knots. Yeah, that's going to get you place. Yeah. Go to an interview. I can light a fire. I can tie a knot. So the whole idea is Hieronymus is an interesting guy. I'm not really sure what he was able to prove or not. There's some nonsense with the astronauts and saying what they were doing. Well, this is nothing more than psychic stuff. I'm not sure what his machine did. But, we're looking for machines that can actually transmute matter, change matter into something else. And of course, we just don't know. There's all sorts of studies, and certainly, I think he was pretty much more knowledgeable than anybody else in the field, and he kind of came last. He also I believe he did live into his 90s. Pretty much everybody else just had very poor understanding of the energy. And most of them knew that it was pure psychic energy, or Ruth Drown, who thought it was some mystical radio wave being created from her basic fantasies. So this then transferred into the years over to Delaware in Europe, who basically seemed to understand that this was just a psychic process because he built the machines that Ruth Drown told him how to do, and there's nothing in them. They're just wires connected to dials. Everybody needs to understand that. And we show you, for those that are joined All Access and get involved in the basically the scalar energy fields, can actually see the inside of all these machines, and you can see exactly what is in Hieronymus machines, etc. And again, it isn't much. He did apparently use some sort of amplification, originally tubes, and of course, this then went into as everybody switched over, and he wrongly switched over because he didn't get it as an electrical engineer. He figured that transistors were better, when that's really an ignorant way of looking at things. So like everything else, Hieronymus and the people that followed up after him and who are making similar machines out there don't have much of a success rate with anything. Again, they're nothing more than psychic tuners if you're not using amplification and transmitters, which from what I understand, they don't use very strong. I mean, you can see right here in front of it that this is a 15-pound amplifier. It's, I believe it's 18 inches by 15 inches. And as I said, it weighs 15 pounds. That's what real amplifiers are. It has 7 tubes and a special transmutation tube in the front here. That's technology, people. And of course, this is relatively new, but the tube amplification and using the resonance from tubes is nothing new. And Hieronymus knew that, and he decided to go into transistors because they were accepted more. You got to remember that he still was just a commonly educated, whatever he was. I don't know if he had a degree in engineering or anything else, but he was in that area. But we had that same old problem with other people. The guy who wrote the book on wish machines and everything else, who claimed that he was a scientist, and these people are boobs. Simple as that. They never get anywhere. It doesn't do anything. And of course, he copied his circuit as well. Everybody's copying Hieronymus' circuit because that's the one that's so easily available anyway. But the fact is that you have to use large amplification and very powerful broadcasting or transmitting energies and many other things. There's many other little factors that are involved that produce great results. This is all cutting edge technology that I am bringing out from my years of research in this area, and finally moving away from what is really joke technology known as radionics or Hieronymus machines, etc. Again, because of harassment and other problems, we have no data on what these things ever done. And now a lot of these people did keep notes, but all of it gets lost as soon as they die. There were real problems with Hieronymus's wife after he passed away, and there was a bunch of con artist things going on. She was trying to make money, and she knew nothing about anything, and I'm not sure what happened after that. Apparently, people picked up and started building similar machines. But again, they're building electromagnetic machines that have nothing to do with electromagnetic energies. It's kind of silly, but that's what you're talking about. These are scalar energies. These are non-electromagnetic. And of course, that's why Tom decided to rename his, I don't know what he called himself before that, but he decided to go into scalar. This way he could protect himself from what is 100% illegal using the term radionic. And he talked about this in early interviews. And people caught him on this and said, well, you're just kind of doing radionics. He said, well, kind of, yes, I guess. He didn't want to admit it because he knew that you can't do this. So he's using a standard Hieronymus machine built by Jenkins, one of the worst manufacturers of all time. It appears, I don't know if he had one made by Hieronymus or not. Jenkins copied Hieronymus and did it on a very poor quality. I mean, they're building machines out of the cheapest junk you can get. This is the reality that was going. So what he did here is he did the classic radionic technique. One of the classic techniques that has always been used is using the reverse energy of whatever it may be that you want to cancel out. He's also made outrageous claims, and it's totally unfair to the entire industry of alternative people that want to balance your energy fields, etc. He's come out and said Ebola, venereal disease, I believe he even said the big C, that he came out and said he could cure. This is outrageous, and he should have been fined and threatened with criminal charges to continue. Why this happens, I don't know. And there's a lot of people doing it. The Spooky 2 people are doing this as well, alluding to the fact that they can actually be able to get out there and take care of any problem that's out there, any kind of problem whatsoever, and that they are doing. Now, he hides in China. I don't know if you can get to him, but big companies that don't let you talk freely, like YouTube, are taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from him, if not millions. He is heavily advertised everywhere, the Spooky 2 person, and again, we have no credibility. He makes all sorts of instruments. If his instruments work so good, you wouldn't need 2 or 3, 5 or 10 other instruments to add into it. You should have one main instrument. You don't need all the other things. But he's making that because he's making a lot of money from everything, and now he's built up this audience. So we don't know if any of this stuff works, and until somebody credible goes out and test it, which I am planning on testing the Spooky 2 people relatively soon to see if they're, but I have to break time away because what I do is I buy stuff, I put it in the closet, and then I never get to it. I'm just too busy. So when I catch up with all my work, I will get a Spooky 2 main unit and test it. We're going to find out whether this stuff works or not, and I will report back. We'll take it from unboxing all the way to using it for a particular situation or problem on several people, and we'll see if it works. And that's what has to be done. Now, ultimately, the only thing that counts is whether it works for you. And if you can convince yourself with a placebo effect that it works for you, does it matter? Well, I don't think it does. The only thing that really matters is the end results. But there is whether something has validity, whether it fits the alternative science mode or not. And one of the problems is much of what Spooky 2 does doesn't fit that. But who knows? I'm not against anything, but I'm not going to open arm this stuff and say it works. There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, and a lot of silliness to what Spooky 2 does. And of course, we got to understand that Tom Paladino fits into that as well. He was making all sorts of claims, and he has services that can cost you as much as $800 or $900 a month, where he'll clear everything out of you. Well, apparently he didn't clear everything out of himself. It has been rumored, and we just don't know, but the feedback here from my sources is that he died from a heart attack. So we're going to have to find it. He was 64, very young. We get into this areas where all these people, and of course he was messing with a lot of electronics he didn't quite understand. And regardless of whether you're using particularly toxic evil organite or even regular orgone, there seems to be dangers with using it. And this also seems to be with, quote, traditional radionics. Now, I'm building into my Scalar tools, which are not radionic, really. It's a hybrid system of using etheric energies, that you protect yourself from all this stuff. One of the problems is that there seems to be some sort of kickback or negativity to the person who is using the equipment. This has been known for a long time. And not only that, it doesn't seem like anybody who uses traditional radionics, even in their crude psychic form, because that's all they are. They're just psychic tools that you're using. They're crutches, basically. They're psychic tuners, and they help you tune into something, and that's a focusing tool. And of course, we all know that there can be, with the right people and the often of use, some amazing results through psychic tuning, through the power of intention. So this can certainly happen. But it does seem that almost every single radionic practitioner, other than Hieronymus, has died fairly young. So only Hieronymus lived to be his early 90s. From everyone else which I'm aware of, they all died young. Ruth Drowner was 71 or 2. Albert Abrams, the father of radionics, he was in his late 60s. I don't know exactly. But the point is, these people weren't dying in their 80s and 90s. So those are ballpark figures of how old they were. We go to other people like Tansley, the famous radionic practitioner out of England. He got cancer and died in his 50s, I believe. I'm not sure how old George Delwart was when he died, but most of them, again, were in their late 60s, which isn't very impressive. I mean, Daniel Boone lived to be 89. Benjamin Franklin lived to be 86. So it's not the fact that people died younger then. So it's very confusing. When we go back and look at all the radionic practitioners, they all seem to have died pretty young, except Hieronymus. And we go really up into this day. People like Peter Moscow, head of the goofball Psychotronic Association of America, was a big time healer, died in his 60s again, and was supposed to be a healer, knowing he talked about all this stuff. As I said, I'm not sure how old Malcolm Ray was when he died, but again, these people aren't living into their late 80s or 90s, which they should be if the tech is working. So we can go down the list of the people who were involved in this stuff, and it's oddly enough, the stuff that's supposed to balance and protect you, these people aren't getting well and they're dying young. Well, the reason for this is also very clear, is that people are not taking care of what is critical to change anything in your life, and that is working on your spiritual energy. If you don't uncross yourself, if you don't unblock yourself and remove the negative energies in you, negative spirits, and all the things that are in you, that you will not be able to get proper healing or sustaining that healing. So most of the time, the first thing you should do in any of these processes is work on the etheric and your spiritual energy bodies. And that's, of course, how I've worked for years. You've got to clear out and uncross that person so they're open to all the positive things they want in life. As long as you're blocked, you're never going to get anywhere, no matter what your goal is. This is very important, and people don't do it. The other thing with Paladino is he's a typical problematic person, being a person. And of course, I don't know if he was serious or not, but this is how, of course, you trick people and you say you're such a big Christian and so forth. He certainly wasn't a Christian with the bills he charged and the amount of money he did for what basically is a moronically simple process, which we'll get into in a minute. But I never felt anything coming from him. He seemed to be a very greedy guy. And he even offered another healer that if they sent people to him, he would pay her $1 a person. How generous, Tom. He was I estimated that he was making anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 a month based on what appeared to be his customer base. From the amount he charges. And as I said, he has services that you can spend $500 to $800 a month on, and lots of other ones that average anywhere from $75 or not. But you start getting the kind of publicity he did everywhere, and oddly enough, he's been around for many years. I would estimate that he's been around for at least 10 years, maybe longer, making all these medical claims and getting away with it. He did claim even recently, from what I understand, that he was able to cure some herpes, I believe, and said he had medical proof. Well, that's not good enough, and you have to get a third party to verify it. And people believe this when you make these statements. I'm always amazed at that. They believe these people because they want a quick and easy out. But the bottom line is you need to have third parties verified. You have to verify the fact that that person had a disease, and then you have to verify that they have been cured of. Now, this is all part of the process if you're going to do serious work, and of course, if you're making a fortune, and if you're going to take money from people. From what I understood is that he would not give anybody any refunds, obviously. If he was so great at this and he failed, and remember, there's no money he's putting into it. He spends a little bit of time and creating this, putting something in his machine, which I'm assuming he's putting in hundreds of people in the same machine, and that's it. So if he fails, well, he's nothing out of his pocket to any great amount. So he should have never not refunded somebody. In the good Christian way that he was, of course. So he didn't want to refund anybody if they were unhappy. Well, I'm not sure how he get away with this. And, it's amazing how these people don't seem to be reported to the Federal Trade Commission and everything else for this kind of underhanded stuff. It just amazes me. But the bottom line is that this guy was basically practicing medicine without a license. He doesn't have the background. And stating to people that he could cure just about everything, including Ebola, by the way. And how are we ever going to know this? So the person either who thinks they have Ebola, and they may think, and of course you got to remember the publics are as crazy as a box of frogs. People tell you all sorts of stuff. and they may have never ever been ill. But the point is, how do we know? Because if you have Ebola, you're either dead or you're alive, and then you claim that you were cured, right? I mean, these things are outrageous and they're dangerous. This is where we come into the fact that, this is this golden mean that we have to be all careful of. Buying into a system that gives you little hope and takes all your money is a dangerous path to be on. Believing in fantasy, which this entire society loves to do, believing in fairy gods that rise from the dead and who are born from virgins, is the height of stupidity. And of course, this goes back thousands of years, not the popular boob we have now, but these stories go back 5,000-10,000 years. So there's nothing new about this. The solar Christ attitude, the rising, this is nothing new and has come from all these traditions. The fact that this guy believed in this nonsense certainly didn't carry him anywhere. Certainly he wasn't helped like all the people that I see. Where were the priests, the rabbis, and everybody else in Los Angeles? Why weren't they in front of the fires screaming for help from their gods? Why didn't they stop the fires? Because they can't, because they're living in a comic book world. And the point is, you get comic book world believers like this guy, and then he takes it out on people. So the problem is that is finding the right path. And if you believe in total nonsense, this could be dangerous in terms of seeking a better answer. But what is a better answer? And this is always the problem with this. Certainly, common medicine is not the answer to most things. Is the fact of using tech like this, which may or may not work, we just don't know. Again, there isn't any kind of research done in these areas to any great extent. And the people that do this seem to be extremely money hungry. They're making lots and lots of money. I wonder if he ever offered anybody anything free because they were in pain and suffering. Did he do any of that kind of work like Jesus did? So I doubt it. This guy was money grabbing and to the highest degree. And from what I can, as I said, from what I can tell, he could have been making from 15 to, I don't know, it could be as high as $35,000 a month with the services he has, doing virtually nothing. So he would get your picture, he would put it in the machine, and then he would put in a reverse energy picture of that disease, meaning what he's doing is sending, or that condition, whatever it is. And he did a lot of new age stuff, which is impossible, clearing your auras, doing this and that. Well, there's no way to test that except metaphysically, and you have to be skilled to do it. I mean, you'd have to get another subtle energy practitioner like myself to test if anything happened after those kind of treatments. Other things are straightforward. You either are, the condition is either gone or it's not. So these are all the things that you look at in the bigger picture. And that's the entire process. This is called a reverse. Now, a lot of ways in radionics, what you would do is you would dial in, if you have the old dial way, which is pretty much the bad way of doing things. But if you're a professional seeking exact frequencies, you dial in whatever the problem is. Let's say you have bad luck and you want to change that. So you find the rate for your bad luck. And then you're using a base 10 unit. Now, base 10 unit means a 0 to 10 on a dial, and there's usually 9 dials, and you have 9 numbers that represent your bad luck. Not bad luck, your bad luck. And then you get whatever is on that dial. Let's say the first dial is 6, and the second one is 5. You subtract 6 from 10, meaning 4, and then you subtract 5 from 10, which is 5. So you would have 4 and 5 on those, and you do that through the entire 9 dials. Now, what you're doing is sending the reverse rate. Now, you could say that a frequency looks like a wood saw. You know, they have these teeth on it, and they have these rows of teeth. And let's say that's what the frequency looks like. Well, you then get another saw, the same thing with the teeth like that, and you press them together so they fit into each other. So what you're doing is you're canceling out that frequency, and that's the reverse way of doing things. Now, this is a practice that a lot of people have used. I've taught this in the past of using reverse rates and these kind of things to as a standard practice. This was quite common in the past. That was one way of doing it. You can also send someone a positive ray. But one of the things, if you're having any particular problem, bad luck, whatever it may be, you can actually cancel that energy out. Now you've neutralized it so that that luck is no longer bad. The problem is that you haven't added in good luck, but you're assuming that once you cancel out the bad luck, the good luck will come in. So it's a complicated process that really only professionals understand. But basically, that's what he was doing. So if you had a particular situation where your biophysical energies are in disharmony, also cause dis-ease, then you can, if that's canceled out, you're assuming that the good energies will kick in and take care of the problem. So that's the, I hope people understand that all of this stuff is not easy where people tell you, anybody can do it, everybody's psychic. Really? Well, you're a dumb as a toad. So, special kind of stupid, as I like to say. That's a special kind of stupid thinking like that. No, people can't do this. Yes, everybody has a modicum of psychic energy. Like most people have 2 feet and 2 hands. Unless something weird's happen. So yes, that's common. But some people can run fast. Some people can't run at all. Some people can use their hands and some people can't. So, it's a big thing. The bottom line is that most people have very poor psychic abilities. And while they can hone these to a degree, they're too lazy. And of course, ultimately, these machines tend to be conscious machines. The fact that psychic is really not a good term, it's a bad term. What they are is consciousness machines. Your consciousness, which is a complicated energetic informational form, is much more than what we consider psychic, which now people look at as kind of comical, or even the goofball Christians who think it's evil. It comes from Satan. God doesn't give you power. God only poos on you. So it's the same old story that we always had. When Mel Gibson, the radical Christian, had a Qigong master kind of push him back and lift him up a little, he screamed, Satan, just like it always is. Because God doesn't do anything, only Satan has power. That's what the Christians say. And of course, they enforce that because their beliefs are garbage. They do nothing. So the whole idea is that when you get into this, you're using the reverse energy. And there's all sorts of different ways to tune consciousness machines in. Scalar machines, meaning scalar energy is a non-electromagnetic informational energetic form. While most of the energies out there are electromagnetic, you actually measure the frequencies. They call them Hertzian frequencies. Which is a misnomer. Basically, they're Maxwell frequencies, and you can measure them on a frequency counter, that this is, X frequency. So that is electromagnetic in nature. When you get into scalar, they are not electromagnetic in nature, but they are the essence of all creation. And I'm not going to go into all the ins and outs of that now, but the bottom line, he changed over to this scalar stuff so he could avoid getting into the radionic practice. Any kind of practicing medicine without a license is illegal, obviously. And it's already been upheld by people who were, such as Ruth Drown, who was arrested and was going to be thrown in jail. Her daughter, who worked with her, I think got 3 years in prison. So the whole idea, if you practice radionics or anything that you claim you can heal people, it is illegal. You need to be a licensed medical practitioner. So that's the reality of it. So he was doing that, and he was promising all sorts of things and a bunch of new age mumbo jumbo about auras and other things. It's a whole list of things he would work on you, and he would take out this vibration and that vibration. And, technically this is true if you're a good practitioner and do this correctly. This is what basically doing what is called oftentimes subtle energy healings and other things. I like to use the term scalar radionics, or what you're using is basically the energies of creation. These are force energy physics, is what I like to call it. And this is a very potent energy. The fact that it is, quote, non-electromagnetic has nothing to do with anything. The point is these energies can't be stopped. They go to the bottom of the ocean, they could go out to Mars, and they go through any structure. No Faraday cage is going to keep them out. Faraday cages keep out electromagnetism. They don't keep out scalar. That's what's so potent about these things. So this is a whole field that people don't quite understand. Of course, Hieronymus did understand this, and that's what he thought about his technology. Again, we just don't know how potent his work was in any way whatsoever. Okay, this is end of part 1. We'll pick it up in part 2.